Welcome to our channel Psyverge. Why do some people walk into a room and command respect without even trying, while others, despite being kind, accommodating, and selfless, seem to fade into the background? Why is it that the more you try to be nice, the more you're taken for granted? Why does people-pleasing feel like the right thing to do, yet somehow leaves you feeling invisible, empty, and strangely bitter? Carl Jung didn't see kindness as weakness, but he did see blind accommodation as a form of self-betrayal. In Jungian psychology, the personality is not just what we show to the world, it's also what we hide. And often, people-pleasing isn't driven by compassion. It's driven by fear. Fear of being disliked. Fear of conflict. Fear of not being enough unless we're useful to someone else. But here's the hard truth. You cannot be respected if you constantly abandon yourself for the approval of others. Jung believed that when we repress parts of ourselves to fit in, to be loved, or to avoid discomfort, we create what he called the shadow. That shadow doesn't disappear just because we ignore it. It grows, it festers, it waits, and sooner or later, it bursts out in the form of resentment, passive aggression, or total emotional collapse. When you constantly prioritize other people's needs over your own, you're not being noble. You're shrinking yourself. You're molding your identity around other people's expectations. And in the process, you erase your own boundaries. But people don't respect erasure. They don't admire the one who always says yes. They admire the one who knows when to say no, and says it without guilt. Have you ever wondered why people respect those who are unapologetically themselves, even if they're blunt, opinionated, or unconventional? It's because authenticity is magnetic. It signals self-ownership. Jung argued that individuation, the process of becoming your true self, requires integrating all parts of your psyche, not just the parts that win approval. It means embracing your assertiveness, your anger, your ambition, even your selfishness when necessary. We're taught from a young age to be good, and often that means suppressing anything that might cause friction. But over time, this pressure to be agreeable becomes a straitjacket. Jung saw this as spiritual poison. When we hide what we really think or want, we disconnect from our essence, and no one can truly respect someone who isn't even connected to themselves. Here's something uncomfortable to think about. Is your kindness truly free? Or is it a transaction? One where you give others what they want, hoping they'll give you what you need: love, loyalty, protection, or validation. Because if it's transactional, it's not kindness. It's manipulation in disguise. And people sense that. Even subconsciously, they can feel when your smile hides a buried scream. Respect doesn't come from being easy to deal with. It comes from being whole. And being whole means being honest. Brutally honest at times. With yourself and with others. That includes admitting when you're angry, when you're hurt, or when something crosses a line. Jung warned that when we disown these feelings, they don't disappear. They just control us from the shadows. People who are always pleasing others are often deeply uncomfortable with being disliked. But here's the paradox. The more afraid you are of being disliked, the less free you are, and the less respected you become. Why? Because fear is contagious. If you're always adjusting yourself to avoid rejection, you're sending the message that your value depends on how others feel about you. And people rarely respect what depends on their approval. Ask yourself, who do you respect more? The person who tells you what you want to hear? Or the one who tells you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable? Carl Jung believed that truth-telling is an act of strength, especially when it costs you something. And that's what earns respect, not charm. Not obedience, not sacrifice. There's a concept in Jungian thought called the persona. It's the mask we wear to function in society. Everyone has one, but when we confuse the mask with the self, we get trapped. The people pleaser is someone who has over-identified with their persona. They believe that their mask is their identity. That politeness is personality. That being liked is the same as being respected. But it's not. You can't respect someone who hides behind a smile all the time. You can like them. You can enjoy their company. But you won't admire them, because you can't admire someone who won't take a stand, who won't draw a line, who never says, "This is who I am, and this is what I won't tolerate." This is where dark psychology comes in. When you're a chronic pleaser, you become easy to manipulate, because manipulators don't go after strong people. They go after those who are eager to please, eager to be chosen, eager to feel needed. That eagerness blinds you to red flags. It makes you ignore your instincts. It makes you say yes when your body is screaming no. And here's something even more disturbing. People who rely on pleasing others often attract those who demand to be pleased. It's a toxic magnetism. The more you give, the more they expect. And because you're afraid of losing their affection, you keep giving until you burn out, break down, or completely lose touch with who you are. Respect is built on boundaries, and boundaries are built on self-respect. Carl Jung believed that true psychological growth starts when you stop asking, "What do they want from me?" and start asking, "What do I want for myself?" Not in a selfish way, but in a conscious, grounded, self-aware way. Jung didn't preach rebellion for its own sake. He spoke about individuation, becoming whole, owning your shadow, understanding your contradictions. It's not about swinging from people-pleasing to arrogance. It's about balance, about recognizing that your needs matter as much as anyone else's, that saying no isn't cruelty, it's clarity. You might think you're being a better person by always being agreeable, but being agreeable at the cost of your truth is not goodness, it's self-erasure, and in the long run, no one thanks you for disappearing yourself. So the next time you feel the urge to keep the peace at your own expense, ask yourself, what would happen if I didn't? What if I said what I really thought? What if I chose discomfort in the short term to gain self-respect in the long run? That's the kind of courage Jung admired. Not loud, flashy defiance, but quiet, consistent alignment with your real self. Because the truth is, the most respected people are not the ones who seek to please. They're the ones who seek to live with integrity. Not everyone will like them, but the ones who do will mean it. And here's the thing most people don't realize. Being respected often means being misunderstood, at least at first. Because when you stop playing the role others have assigned you, they'll push back. They might call you selfish, cold, difficult, not because you've wronged them, but because you've stopped performing for them. Jung understood that growth is disruptive. Individuation, the process of becoming who you really are, is not a polite journey. It's not about being more likable. It's about being more real. And realness makes people uncomfortable, especially those who benefited from your silence, your flexibility, your need to be liked. If you've spent years shaping your identity around keeping the peace, breaking free from that role will feel unnatural. You might feel guilt, but guilt isn't always a moral signal. Sometimes it's just the emotional residue of leaving an old pattern behind. Jung would say that guilt, in these cases, is the byproduct of growth. It means you're stepping out of the shadow and into your authentic self. So how do you start earning real respect? Not by demanding it, not by yelling or posturing, but by changing your posture toward yourself. It begins with honesty. How often do you say yes when you want to say no? How often do you agree just to avoid conflict? How often do you swallow your feelings for the sake of appearing easygoing? These small acts of self-denial pile up, and over time, they become a quiet kind of self-hatred. Jung didn't just write about psychology, he wrote about the soul. He believed that becoming a full human being meant integrating everything you are, not just your virtues, but your flaws, not just your light, but your darkness. And the people who are most respected aren't the flawless ones. They're the ones who are whole, who've met their darkness and refuse to be ruled by it.